Hey boss, welcome to a Thursday Collection Connection, where we're still playing that game. It's just an excuse to talk about records. I play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric from the Plastic Soundwave Cult, and he plays every Monday, I play every Thursday, and you can play along and follow along by subscribing to both channels. In Eric's last video, he played the Cars debut album. Great album, I have that album. Classic, and I won't try to enlighten you on anything on that album except the one interesting fact that I used to make my connection. Now, the interesting thing to me, or an interesting thing to me, about the Cars debut is that it went 6 times platinum, and it is the Cars' best-selling studio album, while simultaneously being their lowest charting album, save for 1987's Door to Door. Even the 2011 reunion album charted higher than the Cars debut. And so how it achieved those sales and became the Cars' best-selling album is because the album had legs. And by legs, I mean it spent a lot of weeks in the Billboard 200, top 200 albums. It amassed 139 weeks, so more than 2 years, well over 2 years, in the Billboard Top 200. More than double even Heartbeat City, which was their next best-selling record, and that spent 60-something weeks in the top 200. So the longevity of the debut is fairly remarkable, and that accounts for the fact that it made number 18, I think, in the charts, and every other album I believe went top 10 in the Cars discography except for Door to Door, which was topped out at like 23 or something. So I wanted to find another album that had similar legs, and within a band's discography became their bestseller in spite of not charting as highly as the rest of their catalog. And I wasn't able to come up with 100% fit. This is more a parallel, because in the way that the Cars had one album that charted lower, this album has one album that sold more from my artist. But my choice is still their longest legs on Billboard 200 and lowest charting. In fact, their 2 highest selling albums are the only 2 studio albums they've ever put out that didn't hit number 1, and which is interesting to me. And so this album, which spent 117 weeks on the Billboard Hot 200, is the 1994 album from Dave Matthews Band, Under the Table and Dreaming. Now, this also, like the Cars debut, went 6 times platinum, but since I just used that as a connection last week, I don't want to rely on that, but that is something that they have in common. The follow-up to this album, Crash, has been certified 7 times platinum, so it has been outsold. And Crash also spent a long time on the charts, spent 105 weeks on the charts, but their longest charting album is 117 weeks with Under the Table and Dreaming. Now, 1994 is about my, I don't want to use the word nadir, because I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but my lowest point, my lowest ebb. How's that? Musically, a lot of the bands that I enjoyed weren't making music at that point. I was not into grunge, and the new music I was buying was stuff that just seemed fine for the most part. Um, and so I bought things like Hootie and the Blowfish, Cracked Rear View, which seemed like the 90s answer to Huey Lewis and the News, sort of frat boy music for guys who don't really enjoy music that much, which seemed like a harsh criticism, but it's the kind of thing that was fine. It wasn't hard to listen to, but neither was it very stirring or engaging. Blues Travelers 4 I bought, No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom. I bought these big albums because the songs were all right, I guess, and it felt like at age 23, I was edging into being an old man, and all my glory days of music, all my favorite music, were going to be behind me. But I also bought during this period Dave Matthews Band, Under the Table and Dreaming, which still kind of qualifies in that to that description. But I will say that I unloaded those other albums, which is something that I've done maybe 2 or 3 times ever in while collecting. I figured if some years later, if I was going to be unexcited whenever one of these songs came on in a shuffle or anything, if I just was never going to want to hear it, I probably should just kind of get rid of it. But I held on to Dave Matthews because I felt like it was a little better, at least to my ears, than those other titles. It was something more engaging than Fine. And listening to it in the last day, and I'm persnickety enough here. I actually took a little screenshot that I can pop up here, showing my listening history of Dave Matthews in general. I clipped both albums. I only have this one in Crash. And you can see a lot of them haven't been played. And my iTunes stats go back to 2001. So this is how thoroughly I stopped listening to it, even though I didn't get rid of it. And if you're really eagle-eyed and you notice that a lot of those are on the same date, it's because I'm enough of a persnickety nerd that the desktop computer that I had in 2001, I got another one in 2008, and that one automatically updated into the one that I got after that, my next desktop. But the one from 2001 didn't. And before I got rid of it, I actually manually went in and recorded all of the playback stats from that computer into the current iTunes. So the date was wrong, but at least the count was right. And so you can tell from that, I was just never, ever listening to it. So even though it, in the picture, will say that half of them were listened to in 2016, if you look closely, you'll see they're all within seconds of each other. So clearly they weren't played in 2016. That's just when I did that manual update of or consolidation from an old laptop or old desktop that I was getting rid of. So I really just never listened to Dave Matthews. And so now, having listened to it today, so I took that screenshot before I fired it up. And it was actually a bit of a throwback then. That's the nice thing about dropping something, I guess, for 20 years, 20 plus years, is that if there's something you like about it, it feels fresh when you come back to it. And I enjoy the opening track, The Best of What's Around, when they get to the big rousing ho ho hey la chorus kind of thing at the end. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy that. Ants marching. What else do we got here? What would you say is probably the thing that puts me right on the edge of Fine? Like that song, that's one of those Fine songs. But a lot of the stuff was really good and made me think of Sting's Nothing Like the Sun era. The drummer, Carter Beauford, has a very similar style to me as Manu Katché, who drums on Nothing Like the Sun, and is one of my favorite drummers, who's not a basher, but is a real intricate rhythm guy with a lot to work on the hi-hat and just flavors and colors and stuff all going through a piece. Just very intricate, light touch work that I enjoy. And Carter Beauford has a lot of that same kind of feel, that jazz feel. And Sting had Branford Marsalis, and Dave Matthews had the late saxophonist Leroy Moore, who I forget which year he died, but he's been gone for a little while now. But he was on this album naturally, and yeah, it feels like Sting if Sting was less into tantra and more into smoke and weed. It's got that jazz, world music, pop blend that Sting seems to maybe take a little more seriously, but Dave Matthews folds in kind of the jam band aesthetic. But the arrangements really made me think of Sting, that particular period of Sting. And it was enjoyable. It was good. I liked it. Probably still not going to go into heavy rotation, but it's always great to have an excuse to pull something out that has gone neglected for years and years, decades in this case. And yeah, I will take that. An album with legs. Dave Matthews Band's Under the Table and Dreaming, their second album from 1994. And pass that over to Eric. You can look for his response on Monday on his channel. And anyone who made it to the end with me here, I want to thank you for watching. Bye-bye.